Welcome, students. Today we are going to make some dies. There's some instruction written down on the on canvas, but I wanted to kind of show you on how to make some dies for possibly doing some painting on the things that we want to do. There are a couple of different things that you do for natural dyes. I looked up and found things like avocados. The avocado skin will make a nice green. I worked on this one a little bit. Red cabbage is kind of an interesting sort of a thing that you can utilize to make a dye. For reds, this one is always a big stainer. This is a beet on that one. A red beet can do it. And then blueberries always seem to stain your fingers and do a lot of things along those lines as well. The purpose of this is I don't want you going out and buying tons and tons and tons of stuff to make the dye. Find something you have around your home that would possibly work for you with those. I have the pan cooking over here. Let me get this water started over here. And so this is about a half a cup of water, and we want to get that so it starts to boil a little bit while we're talking. I tried this yesterday, and then I tried the blueberries yesterday as well. They turned out really good. I also tried some tea, which was kind of a cool thing. I was out at the grocery store today and I bought beets. Not sure I'm a big beet fan, but maybe for chopping up and stuff would be cool. The idea with beets anyways, notice how red they are. That's why I wanted to try this. The original recipe that I saw for creating some of the dyes and stuff from natural vegetables came from staining clothing and doing some natural coloring on that. And so this made a really nice red. And so I thought I'd go out and give that a go. I mainly want to chop it up. I'm looking for surface area in the water when I boil it. And so I'm just trying to get a lot of this red surface thing. So that was about half of a beet. Other things that you can try, here's another real easy one I mentioned, teas. Even herbal teas will have a nice property on those as well. So I've chopped up some of this beet, and let's just slide it right on into the water so we can get it boiling. Notice it's already starting to stain on the cutting board. That's kind of a cool deal there. And so now we just need to have that cooked up a little bit. Let's find something to stir with. I guess this will work. And so I just want to make sure that this starts to boil. I don't want it to boil over or anything like that. And that's the thing. We don't need a ton of dye. We just need a little bit to do some of our painting with on those. And so we don't need tons and tons and tons of it on those. I'm going to throw these guys in there just because I want to as well. And so that's you can already see it starting to turn red on that, and so we're going to let it boil. Let's get that going. Next thing I wanted to show you is how to turn in some of your stuff when you're doing it. It's avocado skin, by the way, on that one. I made up yesterday. This is tea. Okay, it was just an herbal tea. It doesn't have to be a black tea or anything like that, but it's just a tea. And I boiled it for a little bit. It was one with even a little bag in it that we're using. Here's a little bit of a piece of paper. This is what I want you to do to turn this project in. Is once you've made your stain, I just want you to take on a plain white paper, and I just want you to paint in maybe about a 2-inch square so we can see how well it stains. And it looks a lot like the light wash that we get when we're doing our watercolors. And the thing about this is you can layer these on to some degree to get them darker and darker and darker. Okay, so that's about a 2-inch square painted. This is what once again was tea. Then what you do to turn it in, write your name on the bottom over here, and then you can photograph it and turn it in. But let it dry first on that so we can actually see the staining properly. You see there's lots of the ripples and stuff going on with the wet of the paper on that. Let's see, what else do I have? I had this one here ran out of containers. These are real handy little guys too if you have some of those. This one here was my red cabbage yesterday. I just wanted to kind of show you guys the different sorts of colors and stuff that we can get with some of these stains or dyes. I didn't mention it in the video or in the online thing. These are dyes, and they're used a lot with coloring clothing or fabrics, but they stain papers just as well, which is cool. And the difference between a dye like we have here and maybe something like a watercolor paint that we're using will be that it's pigment. A dye is from an organic material a lot of times, and it's not very color fast. It'll stain and do pretty good, but over a longer period of time it will start to deteriorate, start to fade. In fact, they caution and they talk about some of these things that as you make them you'll be able to keep them out of the sunlight, because the sunlight will cause them to fade a little bit. Whereas the pigment is made from a mineral. As you go through those, a mineral, and that will help make it last longer. So it's that, you know, minerals being rock or something along those lines. Here's another one I made. This one I knew was going to be a great stainer on those. This one is blueberry. If you ever had picked up like blueberries and that sort of thing, particularly frozen blueberries, holy smokes, they just like stain everything. Let's see, I think I have enough room over here just to show you the variety of the different colors you can actually get with a stain. And then if you keep these in a watertight container, we can just come and dip them and use them as we need. The difference in the colors you're seeing here as I'm putting more of this blueberry on is it is actually the paper is getting saturated. I just used a typing paper. If I had more of a watercolor paper, those paints or stains would be a little bit more true to the colors we're looking for. Now remember, I'm looking from you one. I just need one stain that you're trying to do on those. Not 4 or 5 or 6, just one stain from something that around your house. Other things that I've heard, turmeric, which is a root, you can utilize. As for yellows, I tried a little bit of like mustard, and that really didn't do much of anything on those. I didn't boil it or anything. Oh, look at that one. Splooched outside the thing, and that's kind of cool. Always make sure to clean up your mess, otherwise you're going to be in big trouble. Okay, so I've been letting this boil a little bit, and I mentioned letting it boil for maybe 30 minutes or so. We need to boil it enough to get the chemical out of here, the colorant on there. The main thing I don't want you to do is I don't want it boiling over. I've set this on a medium heat, and so when it starts, you notice it starts to bubble a little bit. Don't turn it on high. I don't want you burning all the water off, and then all of a sudden you have your stuff on fire on your stove. If you're not as familiar with heating on a stove, I guess this would be a simmer. On what we want to do, we want to cook off some of the chemical or some of the water associated with that, and so boiling it down a little bit is what we're trying to do. I'm just going to use that with just that short a little bit of time. What color we got? I'm going to rinse off my brush real quick. Hold on. So if I just took this color here, now it's cooler, because if it was cooler and I put this in, because it would have some issues with super saturating the paper. But this is just with a few minutes with that beet stuff. We don't eat a lot of beets around here. My wife doesn't really care for them, so we don't beat it up. But look at that as far as a nice red color, and some pretty good varieties of some stains or something you could use for watercolor paint just with at home. That you could create some of these things with. Part of my goal on this was to, well, what do you have at home besides having to go out and buy watercolor paints or buy oil paints or buy paper stuff? So we're going to do a little bit of experimenting with stuff that you might find at home, so that you can have those work for you as far as the stainy paints. I think that's about it. Hope you have some fun doing this, a little bit of an experiment with the paints and stains. and dies. And that's about it. Thanks.